The cheers and the fist bumping of Labour members of Parliament as they metaphorically cut the throats of 4,000 old age pensioners in Britain by cutting off their winter fuel allowance. I'm using a figure of 4,000 because that's the official Labour government figures of how many pensioners will die as a result of the removal of the cold weather allowance by Labour MPs in the House of Commons yesterday. Only one single solitary Labour member of Parliament voted against a cut which even the Conservatives had not dared to make. The cheering of Labour MPs was so ignominious that it can be said to be a day of infamy, and the laughter and jeering of the victorious Labour side when the result of the voting came through will reverberate through the remainder of this Parliament, haunt Labour all the way to its electoral grave, starting next Thursday with the by-election in the Harrow Road ward in London. I apologise, I'm improperly clad. I've been on the campaign trail all day, and I'm telling you now, remember you heard it here, there's going to be a sensational result in that local government by-election, and not least because of the Labour government's slaughter of the OAPs. You know, during the COVID crisis, we all had to sacrifice so much because it was so necessary to save the grannies. Well, last night, Labour killed the grannies. And to add insult to injury, the very next day, David Lammy handed over £600 million more to Ukraine, to Zelensky, and his unelected, undemocratic junta that is still in power for the time being in the capital of Kiev. Last night was a very bad night for Donald Trump. He was flat, he was repetitive, he had few, if any, zingers, phrases that will last and live. He looked bemused at the unexpectedly powerful performance of the Democratic Party nominee Kamala Harris, the current vice president in the Biden-Harris administration. Mind you, expectations of her were so low that so long as her trousers didn't fall down at the podium, it would have been judged an above-average performance by her. As long as she didn't meander off through a word salad cackling like a hyena, she would have been adjudged to have performed well. But she performed much better than that. Now, for the avoidance of doubt, I despise Kamala Harris and Joe Biden with every fiber of my being. I don't want Donald Trump to be the president of the United States, but I want Kamala Harris even less. And so dispassionately I can say, as something of a debater over the decades myself, that it was a disastrous performance by Donald Trump. She, on the other hand, soared like an American eagle. Well, maybe not quite. Let's call her a seagull. She soared like a seagull throughout the debate. But the wind beneath her wings were provided by an astoundingly biased performance by ABC, the hosts of the debate, and the so-called fact-checking which they did. They didn't actually check any of the false facts uttered throughout the debate by Harris, but remorselessly fact-checked Donald Trump's, admittedly at times, absurd exaggeration. Anyone who was thinking of going to Springfield, Ohio, would be ill-advised to take their pet with them because, according to Donald Trump, your dog or cat will be eaten on sight by Haitian illegal aliens, as he put it. It was a very salutary reminder that a week is a long time in politics, or at least the distance between one debate and another debate is a long time in politics. So comprehensive was Joe Biden's defeat by Donald Trump in the first debate that Biden was overthrown in a palace coup. He possibly still does not even know what happened to him, but he is enjoying life on a deck chair in Delaware in the middle of multiple international crises. But last night could well be an election game changer. I don't know if Trump will want to do another debate. I don't know if Harris will want to do another debate. She may want to quit while she's ahead, and definitely on last night's performance, she definitely was ahead. I've been saying here for weeks, actually months, that Donald Trump has lost something of his mojo. And before he was shot in the head by an assailant, inexplicably missed by the Biden administration's Federal Bureau of Investigation and its panoply of intelligence organizations. It was before that I noticed that Donald Trump was losing some of his zing. And last night established it beyond contradiction. The remarkable thing is that Donald Trump's team agreed to a setup, for that's what it was. It was a setup with two mainstream media hacks who were determined to do everything that they were asked to do to help Harris through the debate, to give her opportunities to score goals and to deny Donald Trump any opportunities to score. And they did everything that was asked of them. But the mystery is why Donald Trump himself, with the bully pulpit in front of him, with all his experience now of these kinds of affairs, did not even remotely successfully rebut the lies that Harris was telling about him. He was himself meandering off on tangents about obscure lawsuits against himself, seeking to justify himself in obscure charges and indictments and the rest, which most Americans had long concluded were politically motivated, the weaponization of the legal system to try to defeat him. He failed to land knockout blows. She at one point questioned the intellectual cognition of Donald Trump. He could have knocked her flat by saying, "You conspired against the Republic for years about the fact that your president was completely gaga, was incapable of biting his nails or controlling his bowels. You kept telling the American people that Joe Biden was sharp behind closed doors when you knew that he was a driveling idiot for most, if not all, of his presidency." He didn't even say any of that, never mind as powerfully as that. He allowed her to place in question his cognition, his ability to think and to govern, without mentioning the state of Joe Biden ever since. Only time for one more point on this. And this is the point I had to leave the room and put the kettle on. And it was the middle of the night for us. I could not bear to watch both presidential candidates vie with each other in a Dutch auction as to who loved and supported Israel the most. They were outbidding each other second by second. And so, as I alluded earlier, Lenin once said that the only thing sure about Western elections is who's going to lose them. He meant the working class. The only thing sure about the American election is who's going to win it. And that is the state of Israel. The same Israel which this day has destroyed yet another compound of the United Nations in Gaza and slaughtered still more innocent civilians, most of them women and children, as is the case in every single massacre. It's been a week of massacres, unprecedented massacres, even by the standards of the last 11 months. It was like it was the first day of the war against the inmates, the captives in the concentration camp that is Gaza. The bombing of tents with 2,000 pound bombs, giant missile-sized bombs on people in tents, destroyed the lives of scores of women and children earlier in the week in the Jabalia camp, a camp I know so well, or knew so well. For that's what it looks like now. If this is not genocide that you are watching on the screen, if this is legal military targeting that you are watching on the screen, then I, myself, am a Dutchman. I'm so old I remember the ICJ, the world's highest court, declaring this plausibly a case of genocide. It was so long ago, 6 months ago, and nothing has been done to put that judgment into effect. I'm so old I remember the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court asking the court to issue arrest warrants for the perpetrators of this plausible case of genocide. And absolutely nothing has happened, proving what I said when the ICC was set up. I'm one of these rare beasts that will declare publicly I opposed the establishment of the ICC because, as I predicted at the time when it was going through Parliament, only Africans and Serbians will ever stand trial at it. The empire and its auxiliaries will never appear before this International Criminal Court. And that's exactly how it turned out to be. So Israel sits in the UN. It has all the privileges of a United Nations member. Their state was established by the United Nations. But Israel in 11 months has killed hundreds of United Nations employees, has destroyed virtually every brick of every United Nations installation in Gaza, and has just slaughtered more refugees sheltering in a UN compound this last 24 hours. I need to push on to what will be a major issue in the show tonight. There is a yawning chasm between the official narrative, the official account of 9/11, and the public's perception of what happened there. And there is no doubt, even me, who for years resisted the pressure of the so-called conspiracy theorists, have come to certain conclusions which it would be intellectually dishonest, morally dishonest for me not to share with you. I simply cannot accept the narrative of Building 7. I simply can't accept that the man who bought just a couple of months before the entire 9/11 compound and took out insurance which helpfully included terrorism, and then watched while the Twin Towers were brought down and then Building 7 fell down all of its own. I can no longer accept the explanations previously given about that. But here's breaking news. I believe that whatever hit the Pentagon on 9/11, whatever it was not a Boeing commercial airliner. I have now watched over and over and over again the newly released footage of the impact on the front of the Pentagon, which no pilot, never mind a rookie student pilot, could possibly have achieved. Moreover, it was of a different size and at a vastly different speed that projectile, whatever it was, hit the front of the Pentagon. Why is that important? Well, for two very important reasons. First of all, what happened to the airliner that was supposed to have hit the front of the Pentagon. If it did not hit the front of the Pentagon, what happened to it? Where is it? And if Building 7 did not fall as a result of the impact on the Twin Towers, how and why did it fall? You see, the problem, to continue the metaphor, with removing cornerstones is that the whole edifice begins to tumble. If one fundamental thing is untrue, it begins to bring down everything else that we believed in. We'll be talking to an important individual, Ted Walter, Executive Director of the International Center for 9/11 Justice and Director of Peace. We'll be talking to him in just a few minutes. None of which is to deny that what happened on 9/11 was not a complete, unmitigated human tragedy, disaster of enormous consequences, not just for the 3,000 people who were killed in these events, but for the whole world. Because it can truthfully be said that that one day, 9/11, 2001, has set the course for all of the 21st century to date, with no sign of that course being altered. It precipitated a clash, a battle, a war, a raging war throughout the world, which shows no signs of abating. And so the entire world political situation began on this day in 2001. It doesn't get any more important than that. Stand by. Stay tuned. This is the mother of all talk shows.